Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Expat American. I'm an American living in Moscow, and we are going to cover in this live stream the terrorist attack that happened in Moscow 48 hours ago. We did a live stream already shortly after it happened, and so we're going to revisit it now and see what has changed. And we have for our update, Eddie from last time. Eddie, tell us again, for those who are just joining, who you are, and then give us the update of the situation.
Yeah, my name is Eddie, and I have a YouTube channel called Moscow Photographer. And I am a retired law enforcement officer from Texas, an American expat living here in Moscow. And just to give an update as far as what happened overnight and the new information that we have, is that the number of deaths, according to various sources.
So you can run through the basics for people that have seen nothing, and then give us more details for those that are up to speed.
Sure. Bear with me 1 second here. So what happened, if you're just tuning in for the very first time and you have no idea what's been going on, is that approximately 8 p.m. on Friday evening, 5 armed men entered the Crocus City Hall. This is an event center in Krasnogorsk. This is just right outside of Moscow, in Moscow region. They opened fire on unarmed civilians and set off some incendiary devices and started several fires. Since then, in the hours since then, these 5 individuals have been apprehended and returned to Moscow. And if you're not familiar with this Crocus City Center, what it is, it's a multi-event center. It's very large. They hold exhibitions, concerts, and receptions. And this is exactly what was happening this Friday night. There was a concert by a popular Russian band, Picnic. And right before 8 p.m., right before it was supposed to start, is when this event happened. Okay. And as an update as to what's been put out officially by the Russian government, is the number of deaths by various sources has increased to either 137 or 143 killed. More than 60 of the deceased have already been identified. Today, March 24th, which is Sunday, it is a day of mourning here in the Russian Federation. So flags have been lowered all across the country to half-staff. And at Crocus itself, there are queues of people wishing to honor the memory of the victims. And President Putin lit a candle earlier today on the church of the territory of his residence and reposed for those killed as a result of the terrorist attack. Those detained on suspicion of a terrorist attack at Crocus have been brought to the building of the central office of the investigative committee, where they will
Did we lose you,
go
Eddie?
through and begin a... I'm sorry?
So Eddie has frozen for me, and I have added our next guest, Tim, who is also, I do not see. Looks like everyone's frozen.
Well, I'm here if you can hear me. I still see Eddie.
I'm here.
So Eddie's still moving and grooving on my end.
Okay, very good. So was it just my problem?
Yeah, I think so.
Sorry about that, guys. So Eddie, why don't you bring us home, and then we're going to move on to Tim.
Sure, and let me just scroll through here, see if there's any more information that we can add to that. But that's basically what we have so far that's pertinent to this conversation.
Very good.
So go ahead.
All right. Well, so Tim, let us know, those who don't know you first, who you are.
Okay, so I'm an American who lives in Moscow. I've worked in the Russian media for over a decade, and I play some American football in the Russian Super League. So I guess that sums it up real succinctly.
Okay, very good. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what were your initial feelings or thoughts? You have a platform here. You're able
Mhm.
to, speak in English and in Russian to Russia and to the Western world, and so people might be curious what you think. So, what were your initial thoughts or feelings on this incident?
My initial hope, as I guess maybe I'm internally an optimist, is I was hoping that this would be uh, the potential as a way for the West to sort of get out of the situation. Whereas this is the kind of incident where they could say, "Well, look what Kiev is doing. Let's cut funding. Let's back out." Now, this is just too far. I was hoping that maybe that might be the potential of where this might go, but sadly, that isn't even close to the case. That was my sort of initial internal naive desire for something good to happen of this.
Mm.
But ultimately, if we want to talk about it, because I have written about politics for many years, and I do a lot of the political podcasts and all that, I kind of more think in the more grander scheme of things. And to be honest, when we go back to 2014, especially like the massacre in Odessa on May the 2nd of what would that be then, 2014, to this point, through all the years of the anti-terrorist operation led against the Donbass, and here, to be honest, I it's more of the same. I
Okay.
that sounds
Can
like a
you give
horrible
us
thing to
uh,
say, but
can
you
you give
know.
us a rundown in a nutshell of the Odessa incident for people that don't know?
Oh, well, that was when, during the whole Maidan revolution, people who were against it in Odessa, they kind of stormed the local government building. But I say stormed as in they marched in somewhat forcefully, but unarmed. And then they were locked in there and then burnt to death. And so usually every May 2nd, Russians sort of celebrate that as a day of mourning for the people who died in Odessa. And that was sort of where more or less we could say of the modern tragedies against Russia related to the conflict in Ukraine. I believe that's probably the first big one. But like I'm saying, is that, if we count up everything that's happened to Russia over this past now over a decade, this is really just more of the same, only it happened in Moscow, where the media is.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. So now that 48 hours have passed, have your thoughts or feelings changed at all? Now that you've had time to process
I'll
this?
tell you what, Joseph. Again, sorry, I have a certain Cleveland way of talking that makes everything I say sound a bit sarcastic, so I'm trying to not do that.
Sure, sure, sure.
Well, all my optimism that I was trying to lie to myself in the initial stages of what happened is, of course, gone. It is obvious that this is just sort of another stone in the road to Russia trying to do what it wants to do, and Washington, or I should say, certain entities within Washington and the West, trying to stop Russia from going where it's going. In an attempt to try to delegitimize the powers that be. I gave an interview yesterday to a Russian media source. However, I would say it wasn't exactly a very good interview, especially on their end. But I can tell you one thing. They asked me the question, well, what are these people over there thinking? If they happen to have actually organized this, what would be the point? And I said the point would be to delegitimize the powers that be here and to hopefully finally achieve that regime change that everyone is dreaming of. And they were like, but that's not possible. There was just an election where he got 87% of the vote. And I was like, you don't understand. The piece of paper in front of the bureaucrats says he's unpopular, and the piece of paper on the desk determines everything. And Joseph, that is the real thing. There are certain things about Russia and about America that are scary. The thing that always scares me about Russians is their desire to submit to the West. That is the scariest thing in Russia. And the scariest thing in American society is our ability to do what's written on a piece of paper in front of us. It's terrifying. And yeah, so that was kind of my explanation to the Russian public. Sometimes I like to sort of translate what I say in
Do
Russian
you mean to
as
say
to not.
that,
Yeah.
right? Do you mean to say that, like, the average Russian has a tendency to want to um, do what the West says. Is that what you mean when you say the Russian wants to
They
submit
have
to the
a
West?
cultural they have a cultural inferiority complex that's been going on for the last 300 years, and maybe this last 10 years of nightmares has been enough to possibly change that. But I've talked to people very often, and they still want to go on vacation to France. They're still, like I tell people, is everything between Russia and America, everything could be settled with 10 years of good Hollywood movies. Because that propaganda of the Western superiority and all that, if the West was actually still able to make good media, a lot of this could be overdone. We should also not forget that look at these people who did this terrorist act. Well, if they were actually financed and controlled by the West, and a lot of people, the whole Ukrainian forces, the governmental forces within Moldova that want to also use Moldova as sort of a piece of human meat against the Russians, certain elements within the Kazakhstani society that also want to do the exact same policies that Zelensky did that led to the war, but within Kazakhstan, all over the former Soviet Union, there is definitely the ability of Western forces to entice people beyond just putting money in their pocket. And that is, Russia's real greatest weakness.
Let me take my kid out of the room.
Nope, maybe that got way too depressing way too quickly. So Eddie, sorry about that.
No. I think Joseph had to take care of something in his neighborhood, so to
I
speak.
see. Okay.
But yeah, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, normally I would try to sort of, when you get into one of these weird sort of segue moments, I would try to make a bunch of stupid jokes, but it's kind of not the time. Not really the time. But so anyways, I want to, if you did Joseph mention that you were a former police officer?
I have some experience in law enforcement.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay, because I just wanted to ask Eddie the one question is
absolutely correct.
I've heard conflicting reports. Some people say that the terrorists, now a lot of videos have been exposed, that the terrorists behaved in a very professional way. And I've also read from the Russian media in different sources that they behaved in a completely unprofessional way, completely chaotic. So which was it, in your opinion?
What I've seen from some of the videos is a mixed bag. And I believe, I've seen some of the actors act like they have special training in weapons and military style tactics, while there are others in that group who have no training whatsoever. One was easily taken down by a civilian at Crocus Mall, simply because, and I listened to an interview I saw on Rio Novosti with this individual, and he states that he saw this individual had been shooting, but he ran out of ammunition, so he was reloading. But when he was reloading, he was distracted because he didn't know what he was doing. So this individual saw an opportunity, since this man was distracted, to take his weapon away, or kind of move his weapon out of the way, and then he gave him some blows to the head to subdue him. So some of these guys are not professional, and maybe one or two of them do have special training. If I could go a little bit further, and it's now widely reported that these were acting on behalf of ISIS. And I find that very difficult to believe because of the tactics that they used and the fact that they fled away. And even when they were cornered by law enforcement, they didn't put up a fight. And this is not in the ISIS playbook, so to speak.
Well, then what does the ISIS playbook look like? Is there some sort of like glory and going down
Martyrs
with the fight, or
martyrdom? It's simple.
I see. Interesting.
And we didn't see that.
Stan, who has joined us. Stan, tell us briefly who you are for those that don't know you, and then you can jump on into the conversation.
Hi, Joseph. Hi, Eddie. Hi, Tim. Nice to see you guys again at this very, very tragic event. My name's Stan. have 2 channels on YouTube, one that I don't really use that much because I just don't have the time. But I have my one channel, and it's completely in Russian. It's Sfilinam, for anyone that wants to listen to mostly Russian interviews. I doubt there are a lot of those kinds of people on your channel, Joe, because I assume your audience is American. But
It's
either way,
30% Russian, 30% American right now.
okay. Well, I mean, yesterday I went to Krokus. I went on the other side because I wasn't sure if anyone was allowed into the mall area because it's a big complex. It's not just the Krokus City Hall. There's also a whole bunch of other buildings. One of them is a mall.
Wow.
And I didn't know if they were going to be letting people in to go visit. So I stayed on the other side, right across the river, where I could perfectly see that the Krokus City Hall was still smoking. There was smoke rising right from where everything happened. It was quite visible. And today I drove there at around 11 in the morning, close to 12. And I sat down, I laid down a whole bunch of red roses with a special, I'm not sure what it's called either in English or in Russian, but basically you use it to wrap the roses around, and it's usually for funerals or for these kinds of occasions. So there was a lot of people. There's a lot of people walking because they wanted to pay their respects. They wanted to show the people that did this and the people that planned this that we're united, that there's no way in hell they're going to break our spirit, and these kinds of acts only piss us off even more. They unite us even more. They make the glue, the bond between all the different people in Russia even stickier. So these kinds of events will only piss us off even more. So the people who have been planning this, they probably will understand this moving forward, that this will not scare us. This will enrage us. That's quite important. So unfortunately, there was a lot of lives lost regarding the professionalism or unprofessionalism. I mean, or the fact that, Eddie was talking about ISIS. The fact that they tried to escape, and the fact that a whole bunch of governments instantly said that this was ISIS and this wasn't the neighboring country 404. Since this may be going on YouTube, we have to use special words. As soon as they started saying that it was somebody else, that was a clear clue that they were trying to hide something, that they wanted the flow of information to only go one way. Because as we know, in the 21st century, the one who says it first is the one, unfortunately, who is right, even if the information is entirely false, even if it's a complete fabricated lie. So as soon as I saw and heard that, I knew that there was something wrong. I knew that there was an issue, and I knew that we were being lied to. And the other, again, as Eddie pointed out, they were professional in the way that they left and they planned their escape, and they had an escape route, and they were caught. I mean, people think that Russia's big. It is big. It's the biggest country in the world. But Bryansk to Moscow is 350 kilometers. That's about 200 miles, something like that, 220 maybe. That's nothing. That is literally nothing, especially in the middle of the night. You can easily drive that in 3.5 to 4 hours. So, and they were caught somewhere on the outskirts. Normally, if this is some kind of enraged teenager, normally there's a suicide by, or sorry, I'm not supposed to say that. It's a self-deletion by cop, or it's somebody who is looking to make a statement and then still end up with a self-deletion by cop. This was we know that some higher ups, I'm not going to name names just again because of YouTube, but they have been saying, and they have said in the past, that their goal is to kill as many Russians as possible. This fits into their playbook. Again, it's a tragic event. It's a day of mourning. I've been there. I saw the sadness in random people's eyes. I saw how many people were walking through to pay their respects. I heard and saw in video as well how many other people across, not just Russia, but across the planet, how they've been supporting the country and everyone, and it's been an amazing level of support. I don't agree with our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and some other people who are saying that everyone, even some Western governments, should be expressing their condemnation, et cetera, et cetera. I honestly, I don't agree with that, because in my mind, if a particular country has put a goal to destroy our society from within in any means possible, then I don't want to hear empty words of support. I don't want to hear empty words of and empty condolences. I don't care. I hate those kinds of people that do this, that think it's almost like wiping their own ass just to say this and then move on to day-to-day rhetoric. They don't mean it. They don't have any feelings behind it. They don't care. So in my mind, they should just stop talking, not say anything, because it's just empty words for me. But everyone else that actually truly does support us and support people who are suffering, I think that their words are welcome, and I'm very grateful that so many people in so many other countries are expressing their condolences. So I guess that's it from my end for now.
Stan, I have a quick question. Maybe you know, maybe you don't, because they were going into the neighboring country, or trying to, let's say.
Sure.
How do you do that? Where are they crossing through? Do we know? Because it's a war zone, right? Like it's one military on one side, one on another. Maybe it's a stupid question, but do we know like what city or what region or like where they're trying to cross over and how that happens?
Well, they mentioned, as far as we know, it's the Bryansk region. Now, if you could imagine, there are two very, very long land borders. One is the Russian and everyone else land border, and one is the American-Canadian land border. Those are two quite large. They're huge. There's lots of forest. There's lots of fields. I mean, if you can picture that, crossing it, if there's nothing happening, should be rather simple, technically speaking. With all the technology that's in the air, all of the spy satellites from a whole bunch of countries looking at that particular region.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
you get
it should have been
long
practically
ramp up.
impossible. It should have been practically impossible to cross at all. And that's exactly
Right.
why they were caught, because they were stupid enough to think that they were actually going to make it across the border.
Well, yeah, and we can't expect from whoever hired them, although I think we kind of know, but whoever specifically hired them, they're not going to have some sort of attitude of loyalty towards these guys, like, you know, that they would arrange this perfect way for them to escape out of the goodness of their heart and all of this stuff. Because, yeah, if I've actually been to the Russian border by Finland, like the real legitimate border, and it's a gigantic fence that's covered in razor wire. I don't know about the rest of the border of Russia, but they're very aware of when something crosses the border that's the size of a person or a deer or whatever. So, yeah, their chances of actually making it out were pretty much nil, especially because as the roads end, you start to get into this sort of area where there's a pre-border. So there's not just one border to Russia, there's like a more internal border that has a station, and then there's an external final border which also has a station. So their ability to sort of try to, I don't know, blow through two guard posts in a Renault micro car seems laughable at best.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, and again, with my example with the two borders, if you look at the Canadian-American border, it's a very dense forest. If you
Yeah.
go south, if you've ever been to southern areas of Russia, it's open fields with some tree lines.
Mhm.
It's almost like squares if you look from the top, so you can see everything. Even though it's a very long border, and they thought that they were going to get through with all the technology that's there at the moment, it's practically impossible. So Tim is entirely correct that there was no loyalty from the people who bought these guys, and they hired them to do this horrendous act of terror. So sure, they might have opened a hole for them so they could go through, and in case they did, they may have used them for something else, but it was practically, the chances were slim to nil, and they were caught. It's exactly what anyone would have expected. I mean, Moscow has several different rings of not only anti-aircraft systems but also security. And when as soon as this thing happened, there were special units activated. And again, getting out of Moscow, you're using a specific network of roads. Anyone who lives here knows there are cameras absolutely everywhere. Everywhere. As soon as they know what kind of car these people are using, their not days, but their hours were numbered. That's it. And it's that simple. Unfortunately, as I said in the video that I created for my Russian channel, we are we easily remember the failures of our special security forces, but we don't know of their successes, because their successes are usually quiet, or they end up somewhere in the news and we forget about them. So unfortunately, this was a failure, but it must have been extremely difficult to understand. I mean, I'm not sure if this was discussed earlier, but the 22nd is also an anniversary of a horrendous act. I'm not sure if anyone's aware, but
No, we haven't discussed it on this show. Go ahead.
It's the massacre of Khatyn, which is in Belarus, where I believe it was 1943 or 1942. I'm not sure of the year, but basically because the Belarusian partisans, they had ambushed a German patrol at the time, and they had deleted a particular German captain. The village of Khatyn was basically punished for that, and I believe 140 or 150 people, half of them were children, I believe, were all stuffed into a barn, shot, and then those who tried to escape were shot, and then they were burned as well. So I'm not sure if this is an accidental date or if it was chosen on purpose. But either way, at the time, it wasn't just Germans doing it. It was our neighboring countries' people who were supporting Germany. They were conducting this particular massacre against the Belarusians as well. So again, I don't know if this was a symbolic date that was chosen or if it was chosen accidentally, but the fact that they tried to keep people inside of that theater and then set them on fire is exactly what people, German people at the time, I'm trying to be very diplomatic on YouTube. I'm sorry that I'm not speaking correctly. I'm really trying to pick my words here. But it's basically the German officers and the German soldiers at the time in that village. They did the exact same thing. They rounded up people. They shot those who tried to escape, and they burned a whole bunch of people alive. I mean, I don't know if this was symbolic, but it sure looks like it was done on purpose at this particular day in this particular time. But that could be just my opinion. I might be connecting too many dots and looking and seeing things that are not actually there.
Well, Stan, when you came on, they were talking about ISIS, and we have a comment here. And if you guys are able to read it quickly, because I don't know what we should or shouldn't say as far as the algorithm, as far as like Skynet listening to us. Is there anything that we can? Is there a way we can address this or no?
Well, I don't know about what this. Many people don't have trouble believing this. I think the entire alternative media believes that to be the case. I mean, like people, this is again one of these things where Russians will be like, well, look at the American media. They said that no, the real American media, is in like the alternative media, was all 100%. Oh yeah, it was an inside job. It was not just some sort of random radicals. So I disagree with the statement. I think that there are many, many millions of people who see things the way that Stuart does.
Okay. Any thoughts, Stan, or no?
Well, I mean, as many people in the West, in particular, have trouble believing that that particular group are proxies of the West. Well, I mean, in this case, it's cheaper in some ways. I mean, depends on who's stealing the budget. To hire people to do your dirty bidding. And if you take a look and see who that particular group was fighting against in the beginning, anyway, then you can draw your lines and you can see what particular people or what particular organizations were taking advantage of that opportunity of them being there, of them using these particular groups to wreak havoc upon the Middle East. So, you follow the money. You see who benefits, right? That's usually the easiest way to find out who the guilty party is. So you can just think about that, who benefits from them being there, and then you'll be able to find your answer.
And the guys that did the terrorist attack, where are they from?
Tajikistan.
That's what they're saying. Yep.
And that is that from the former Soviet Union?
Yep.
Because I think
Yes.
Natalia was saying yesterday that that might have been on purpose to help to try to divide the people that have the Soviet Union as an in common thing, to try to pull this apart. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Well, that Russians and other former Soviet countries are becoming unified, and if we use people from
God
within
forbid.
Go ahead.
I don't know, Joe. I think you're not phrasing the question very good, because is there some sort of tension between the migrant workers and the locals in Russia? Yes. So is it something that sort of, it could be theoretically to ignite some sort of deeper hatred between those two groups? Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, there is, gentlemen. Let me like a teaspoon of dirt into the this narrative that there is some kind of an affinity between the former Soviet peoples. I can tell you as a Russian, there isn't, and hatred is not being ignited. I don't know a single person, honestly, a single person, a native, who won these people here. And it is a beautiful thing. I mean, it's a horrible thing to say. It's the positive of what happened 2 days ago is that there'll be mass deportations, there'll be passport cancellations, there'll be repressions, Russian style. Beautiful, beautiful. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm sure the migration laws are going to change now, because people have been sort of waiting for a long time for some sort of catalyst to finally do something about this. Because why are people here? There's two theories. Theory number one is that it's all meddling from Washington. Theory number two is because it's really good for certain rich people. I think theory number two is more the way things are going, but now those rich people are trapped within the Russian economy and they've got nowhere to go. So they might have to sign off with paying people more to use local labor. So that's probably what is going to happen in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. These people should be expelled, and all this Eurasianist, pink bubbles about, this huge Eurasian space, which is, we're all neighbors and all that. We're not neighbors. God forbid. Good riddance. The faster, the better. Russia is a Christian country. We have our Muslim minority, but we're going to have them. We have gotten along with them for 500 years, but these people from Central Asia, no, they should either be, integrated, assimilated repressively with hard force, like none of this crap about being it's different culture and that. If you don't like it, love it or leave it, like they say in Texas. So this is a good thing, and it's going to be a good example for the West, because the mass deportations in the West are coming as well. It is a beautiful thing too. And consider that all of you gentlemen, they don't like you big time. I can tell you, because I started this project with trying to bring in foreigners to Russia about 5 years ago, and I have videos on YouTube, and you should see all the negative comments have Turkic nicknames, Turkic avatars. So yeah, it's good. The West and Ukraine is they're all paper tigers. Don't matter much who hired them or whatever. The fact that 4 Tajiks, just massacred in cold blood white Christians. I mean, let's not mince words here. Yeah, that's that just shows everybody. Yeah. So.
So
Oh,
what
I don't
basically
know.
what you're saying
Dimitri, while
basically
we're
what
on,
you're
you
saying
want
is
to
that
tell us,
basically what you're
who
saying
you
that is
are?
that 4 people you're painting everyone else with 4 people. What 4 people did. You're painting everyone else.
No, that's not true. I know these people. See, I've lived along with them for my whole life. So it's not a theoretical, tolerance that I'm supposed to have. The majority of them do not like Christians. The majority of them do not like Russians. Russian men are drunks. Russian women are prostitutes. That's how they see us, and we don't like it, because we brought
Dude,
them
that's how
out
the
of.
whole world sees Russia.
Yeah, well, I don't know about the whole
I mean,
world.
come on, dude. Don't fucking make shit up. That's how the West sees you too. But this is exactly that Russian.
Yeah, I don't care about the West. I don't care about the West.
You can, as a Russian, see how they hate you, but you don't see how the West hates you in the same way.
No, I understand that. But the West, see, I don't have, alphabet people, serving me shawarma every day or something, and looking at me funny, because they do. When they first arrived here about 20 years ago, they were all walking around with their eyes down, because they knew that they're just guests. Now, all these Wahhabi beards and all this crap, they're walking around like, there's something. Even the place where they come from are shithole countries, like President Trump said. They're just, basically, it's not even Africa. It's Africa. We call it Africa. It would be a compliment. So yeah, good riddance.
One question for you then: how many kids you got?
3.
Thank goodness. All right. Well, you're not a total hypocrite. All right, guys. I'm out. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks for coming, Tim. So guys, I think some disagreement is fine because I think it helps us all to think. It helps the audience to think. So I want us to have some disagreement, but let's pause for a second. And
why do they
collect
have
our
so
thoughts.
much? I'm sorry, Joseph. I'm sorry. Why do you think that they have such a big problem with you, but they don't have a big problem with me?
They do have a big problem with you since you're a white Christian.
They do not have a big problem.
They do. Do you live here?
Every single one of them that I've ever spoken to that is a worker here doing work that no Russian will do in Moscow.
No, that's no. That's not true.
Я сейчас скажу, и потом ты расскажешь. Я скажу, и потом...
Хорошо, дружище. Давай. Да. Ты у нас толерантный, да, я так понимаю?
Нет, я скажу, потом ты скажешь. Понятно?
Давай.
Thank you. It's not about tolerance. It's about common sense. There's some people in our country need to look at themselves and think about why these people don't like them in particular. I've had more bad interactions with normal local Russians that I've had with those people who've actually come here. Me, myself, personally, okay? Because you're talking about anecdotal evidence from your end, and I have anecdotal evidence from my end. And now we're basically at square one. We're at a stalemate because you're coming from one side and I'm coming from another. Now, if you take all the people and you're saying, wow, this is a good thing that this happened, which blows my mind how someone can say something like this.
I'm not saying that is a good thing. No. Do not put words into my mouth.
We're going to start basically deporting people who had nothing to do with this just blows my mind entirely. But I'm not trying to make this into something where, I'm offended. I'm just saying you've painted a whole bunch of people with one single brush, and you've taken geopolitics and geopolitical interests and you've thrown them out into the trash by thinking that this is a good idea and there's not going to be other consequences, which consequences, by the way, other countries are going to take advantage of, and they are trying to take advantage of. That's going to cause problems down the line for our country that I am sure you love very much. I'm not being sarcastic about it. But some things, need to be thought about first and then said, in my opinion.
Well, in my opinion, do you live in Russia? Are you Russian or where do you come from?
Я живу в России.
То есть ты русский?
Да.
Понятно. И ты, наверное, жил где-то за границей, я так подозреваю.
Я во многих. I lived in many places, and let's continue this in English.
What I say here is the opinion of 95% of my countrymates. You know,
Where are your stats? I want to see statistics.
yeah, well, look.
I need to see citations. I don't need anecdotal evidence. I need citations.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
exactly. That's the problem. I need citations.
No. Do you have citations that everybody loves in the year, or what?
I never said.
I don't
never
know.
said that.
Nobody likes them here. Nobody, because of the arrogance.
Where's your proof? Where are your
There
sources?
I can give you sources. Yeah, there are polls and data and all that. Yeah, nobody likes them here. I'll send you links.
That nobody. It better say that nobody likes them here.
Yeah. The vast majority do not. Yes.
What is the vast? How much percent? 50%, 60, 70, 80%?
80.
You must have read these studies.
Yes.
You should know this by heart. If you're
80%. Yes.
80%.
I don't know. Why are you defending them? What is this? What's wrong with you? Do you not understand, or like how much time have you spent in Russia?
Why am I defending them?
Guys,
I'm not defending people.
Guys,
I'm not defending people who have conducted
this.
this act. I'm defending them. I'm defending people, basic people that I know that have come from those countries that I actually am friends with or acquaintances of, and I know because you're presenting anecdotal evidence and I'm presenting anecdotal evidence back. So unless you have actual studies and proof about what you're saying, especially
I do.
Especially, you know what? The other thing that really ticks me off is that you're coming on somebody else's channel without having the slightest understanding that a whole bunch of things that you've said might have put his channel in danger. So not only you don't have any respect for the author of this particular channel, you've also come here spewing, literally without any kind of evidence, hatred to an actual group of people.
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
I don't need your apologies.
Yes, I'm gonna go kiss him. Yeah. Well, okay. Stop. I'm checking out.
You might as well paint a swastika on your face and go on meetings with Navalny if you're going to be saying that. Get the hell out of here, then.
Okay. All right. So, guys, we're all under stress. It's a tough time. Let's introduce who's been waiting here. Arend Feenstra, you came in recently. Introduce us to you. Who are you?
Arend Feenstra. Arend Feenstra, got a YouTube channel, Countryside Acres. Recent immigrant to Russia.
Okay.
He's freezing.
And what were your initial feelings or thoughts?
Oh, lost everybody. Now they're back again. So.
On what you heard.
I don't know. The audio was pretty choppy over here, so I'm not sure. What did you say?
Okay. And who else is with us? Charles, introduce us. Introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hey, Joe. Hey, my name is Charles Bausman. I lived and worked for like a total of 30 years in Russia, and now I'm back. Against my will, I'm a January 6th refugee. And people know about me partly because I started a website called Russia Insider, which is no longer active, but it was well known in its day. And I continue to publish a website about Orthodox Christianity called Russian Faith.
Okay. All right. And so you were in the Capitol building on January 6th, and you're a journalist, and you have ties to America and Russia. And so what were your initial feelings and or thoughts on this terrorist attack that happened a couple days ago?
Well, I guess I should separate the personal from the. As a journalist, I also tend to start to analyze these things right away. But obviously, on the personal side, horror, revulsion, deep sadness. I've seen so many of these things happen over the years. That's one of the sad things about journalism is sometimes you have to, spend every day looking at horrific scenes, if it's in Gaza or Donbass, going back to 2014. So I knew exactly what was. I had that horrible sinking again, sort of got ball in my stomach, thinking, "Oh no, This is just horrific. Yeah, so that was it. And I don't want, you know, I don't know if you guys want to know what I think about who might be behind it or what's going on. It's kind of a complicated story, and I'm not even sure I know myself. The things are still unfolding. And obviously I talk to a lot of journalists, so I hear a lot of theories and so on and so forth. But I kind of just got here and I missed the preceding conversation, so I don't know really where you're at. What?
Hi, Charles, by the way. It's good to see you.
Hey,
I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, good to see you.
Listen, sorry about that, Joe. It's just it was someone had to get him to stop talking. I suggest you take that. I suggest you take that off your off YouTube. Don't keep that on because you might actually get a strike for everything that he said. So,
Oh, really?
Just that he had. Listen,
You're
Charles,
saying take this video down when we're done and just chop it up.
Not now, but afterwards, after the stream ends, because now we're all nice and peaceful, and I think everyone here is sensible people. I'm not sure if Eddie's. There we go. Eddie's moving.
We're still here.
Yeah, cool. So I think we're all sensible and smart people, and we can all control what we have to say. But that particular person, I'm not going to say anything about people who are not here. But either way, that kind of rhetoric would basically spur. In Russian, it's samasudye or samepravie, or however you want to say it. Basically, it would get people who are of particular thoughts about everything to take matters into their own hands and start injuring. Again, I'm trying to be YouTube political, injuring people from a particular background just because. That kind of rhetoric is extremely dangerous, especially that, we were the Soviet Union. We had a whole bunch of neighboring countries. We were plus or minus friends, you can call it that. But that kind of rhetoric doesn't do anyone any good. In fact, it only spurs more hate and creates more problems. I'm not saying that, we should let everyone pour in, without any kinds of background checks. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that particular hate, I'm even going to use the terms that I don't like to use myself. I mean, that was actually examples of hate speech, right? Like literal, not like, hey, I'm a Republican and I'm trying to support Trump. No, I'm talking about like, hey, that was actual hate speech. He actually said that a group of people were all bad, So, Charles, I have no idea where we ended or started before that whole thing happened.
Well, I just, just to say, I think generalizations are not good. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like Arend's internet's back up. So
yeah, I think it's working again. Yeah, I would add to that as well. I personally don't stand for that. I believe we should judge people by their character, not by their nationality or their religion or their skin color. There's good and bad in every group, unfortunately. So, yeah.
I have a random question for Joseph, by the way. Hey, Joe, can you hear me?
Yes, ask
why
away.
Why do you have a background of Montreal police or Quebec police? I'm just curious.
Well,
I can see it's Quebec police.
I just Googled police car at night and pulled it up. I did not know it was Canadian, but I'll just say I did, and I did it for you and Arend.
Okay, perfect. All right,
Canadian connection.
I'm pretty sure that's Montreal police right there. So, anyways, random question. So,
how can you see enough of it to determine that?
Because if 3 people leave, you'll be able to see, because then the will be moving around. See there, you'll see it. You'll see.
Oh yeah, police.
Because of Charles. Because right now they're. Anyways, doesn't matter. You'll be able to see it later.
Okay.
Maybe you rewind to the beginning of the show. Listen, I apologize, guys, if I don't mean to cut you short again. If you have any questions for me, anything at all, I'll answer. But otherwise, I have to go walk my dogs. So.
Well, Stan, I really appreciate that you came on, and I appreciate that you went to the site and looked around, and you were able to tell everyone that you saw that people were, treating it with respect and laying flowers and taking it very seriously. And it's another way to let the world know that Russia is a human place with real people living in it. So I appreciate that. So.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions for Stan before he takes off?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well,
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate you.
thank you, guys. Hope to see you all in person.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Hope to
Yeah,
see
good
you
to
more
see you
often.
again.
Likewise. We'll see you, Stan.
Ciao, guys. Likewise. Ciao.
Take care.
And now that I think about it, I believe when I started the channel a little over a year ago, it was Charles that invited me to a couple of meetings where I met Stan. So I'd
Yeah, that's
forgotten,
right.
I'd forgotten that you two knew each other. So
So Joe, what's the format here? Are we just talking about anything we want, or
yeah, we can, we're on the topic of course, there's an incident in Moscow. I have some general questions for you guys if you get stuck, but if you have something that's on your heart, I think you should just go for it, Charles. Go for it.
Regarding the Friday's tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I write a column for the largest Russian newspaper. It's called Komsomolskaya Pravda, and they asked me to write a column, an article about what people are saying in the U.S. about this in terms of what the media is saying. And so I looked into it this morning and was expecting a lot of trash talk coming from, the usual suspects, the New York Times and CNN and so on and so forth. And I was somewhat surprised to see that the tone was one of sympathy and empathy. And that a lot of people were expressing, who you'd think would be opponents of Russia, were expressing sadness and outrage. And I thought that was very interesting as a journalist, because what it suggests is that they weren't expecting this, and they didn't have an agenda of trying to, blame it on whoever. And the New York Times has these, and the Washington Post had these big analyses, and you have to understand, these people, I hate these people, and they hate me, right. And we're mortal enemies. But it was kind of good to see that the response seemed to be really quite human, across the political spectrum. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting.
Okay. What would you say, Charles, to people from around the world that are watching this terrible tragedy? Like what do you want foreigners to come away from this with in their thoughts about Russia and Russia's place in the world?
Well, I would want them, first of all, to think more carefully about this conflict that's happening and how it got started. And I obviously think it's very much the fault of the people who run U.S. foreign policy, that Russia's defending itself. And I'm sure this view is, you guys are all familiar with this, and so is your audience probably, Joe. But when horrible things like this happen, people sort of stop and take a closer look and maybe think to themselves, is this really worth it? Is this something we want to be funding? And maybe we should try and figure out a way to bring this to an end. I would say, putting on my analyst hat here, the one thing that doesn't make sense about this attack is that, the obvious culprit, a lot of people are saying, is Ukraine. And indirectly the U.S. or the Western intelligence agencies and so on. But you know what? That doesn't really add up. This is the strange thing about it, because this is going to increase sympathy for Russia. It's going to increase support for Russia. And it is in no way going to further any kind of military or political goals for the people with whom Russia is fighting. And so I think if you look at, the cui bono thing, it doesn't really make sense that this came from the West. And it doesn't make sense that it came from ISIS either. And so it's You know, I don't, and that's what I kind of was saying at the beginning. You know, I've been hearing a lot of theories about what might have happened and who might be behind it, but at this point, it's all very murky and not really clear what's going on.
Right. Aaron, you want to chat about anything?
Well, I thought it was interesting. I've only seen the ISIS part. I'm assuming you're allowed to say that word on here. I don't know, but I've only seen that in Western media. I haven't seen anything on this side. Now, I don't follow much media at all. So maybe one of you guys has seen that over here. Like, has Russia made any statement as far as where it came from or who was behind it?
No, they haven't. I mean, there have been, you know, Putin hinted that he thought that Ukraine looked very suspect, but he in fact said himself that he didn't want to jump to any conclusions until all the facts had come out, and so that's been the position of the Russian media. Basically, has been like, it looks like it's Ukraine, but we're going to hold judgment for now. So yeah, but you know, obviously all the evidence points to Ukraine, just like in any well-designed crime, which tends to point the finger at people who aren't in fact guilty.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. I thought maybe you said there was no point to it. Maybe if Ukraine had done it, but it could still be just a destabilizing effect, right? Where people get the fear in their mind of going out to public places or things like that, right? War fatigue. I'm not saying that's what it is, but there could be. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that, but on the other hand, it also really unifies people and makes them really angry. And
yeah, sure. Yeah.
But the effect on the Russian mentality is not the main thing. What's the wobbly part of the stool right now is Western public opinion, which has been steadily growing and growing and growing against continuing this war. And and it's exactly this sort of thing that can be really used as a you know, a stick over people's heads, saying, stop doing this. This is a bad idea, you know? So it's, and I'm not suggesting in any way that Russia might be behind it as a false flag. I'm not saying that at all. But maybe some other people who do want to get out of the Ukraine war in the West might be behind it. I don't know. It's a weird situation.
Interesting.
Yep, interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting thoughts. I thought it was kind of suspect right away when the Western media was printing this, and I couldn't find anything on RT. That's pretty well my only Russian source of news, I guess. But I'd never once seen ISIS mentioned anywhere. So I thought that was odd that within hours the West knew exactly who had done it. Anyway,
well, you
there's
know,
a lot of things in Western media that I find is odd.
I think they were trying to deflect from Ukraine. Like something horrible like this happens, and obviously Ukraine is the obvious primary suspect. So they immediately try to like throw up a lot of information noise to try and because they realize that that's really going to hurt their situation there, because they're supporting Ukraine.
Right. Yeah.
Right? They realize it's a kind of a PR disaster, and they're talking up the ISIS thing.
Yep.
I have a question that's a bit off topic for you, Arend, because you are in the news. So Arend recently moved to Russia from Canada, if you guys do not know, and he has gotten a lot of world publicity because he came here without a Russian wife and a lot of kids. And people are really concerned for you and your family, Arend. Your YouTube channel is in the description below. So give us a little update. How are things going for you? You guys going to be able to stay in the country and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's looking that way. I don't know. It's a long story, I guess. It's not maybe the right place to share it, but we came here on a tourist visa, knowing full well we may end up having to leave at some point in order to get paperwork done and this testing and all that stuff. So the tourist visa allows us to come and go as many times as we like within a 6-month period, but a maximum stay of 90 days. And so that's why we mentioned we might be leaving because of that. We were running out of time on our tourist visa. It looks like now we've applied for it, I guess, for temporary asylum. So if that goes through, that'll give us an extra year to get everything done and finalized. But yeah, local government here, nobody wants us to go. They are looking forward to us settling here and starting a farm as well. So they're doing whatever they can, whatever's within their control, I guess, within their power to help us out. So.
Are you applying for asylum? Oh, go ahead, Charles. Go ahead.
Can I ask Arend a question? Arend, yeah. So I became aware of you. I saw you on, I heard about you in the news and Russian news and YouTube and all these places. And I wanted to ask you, there's a lot of farmers, I think, who are under pressure in the West, and there's a war on farmers, or basically, maybe you could say if you're aware of that yourself as a farmer. I'm just curious, like what scale and what kind of farm are you thinking about starting where you're at? Is it going to be, a good sized commercial operation, or is this more like sort of a family thing where you're just sort of interested in feeding yourselves and maybe selling the surplus, or are you looking at it as a kind of a business thing where you have employees and that sort of thing?
So the war on farmers, we never personally feel that so much. Our farm is fairly small, and I don't think it's as bad in Canada. Like if you see what's going on in Europe, it's far, far worse. Now, in a larger scheme of things, there's always new rules, new regulations, more tax, especially the carbon tax is a big one in Canada. They keep jacking that higher, so our energy costs are much higher. It makes it a lot harder to afford to farm, and fertilizer then goes up as well. And everything that gets shipped by a truck, all of that stuff. So indirectly affected. Our farm in Canada, we had 200 acres, and I did a lot of custom work for other people. So the costs go up, but I just passed it on to someone else. It didn't personally affect us in any way. For us, it was more looking towards the future. That's the mentality that's there, that they are not supportive of agriculture like they would have been in the past, and to be able to help our children farm in the future. That was more our angle as far as leaving. Here, we're hoping to set up similar to what we did there, but our hope is to help our children farm. So to continue to grow to a size where they can partake in the family business, I guess, continue to buy more land. So we had 200 acres there. I'm hoping to be able to help our children with 200 or 400 acres each here. What we're looking at right now would be buying an old communal farm and refurbishing it, having a variety of different animals, not just for our own, obviously providing all of our own food, but then obviously selling the excess as well. So it'll be a lot bigger than what we need, and then hiring as many people as we can. We have kind of a vision in mind to rebuild a Russian village. Obviously, it's only one small part of Russia. We won't be rebuilding the whole country, but doing what we can to breathe life back into the countryside, give hope to farming, and educate people that you can live out there and have a really good life. You don't have to live in the city.
And
I don't know if that answers anything there.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting, because what I used to, before I started this Russia Insider site as a hobby in 2014, and then it really took off, and I started doing it full time. But before that, I worked in finance, and I specialized in agribusiness. And
okay.
I was working with these. It's kind of like bad. I now realize, and I even realized then, but these, there was a lot of financial interest from financial investors in buying up Russian, huge amounts of Russian farmland for investment funds and, mega agribusiness monsters with hundreds of thousands of hectares and so on. And so I traveled all over like the agricultural regions of Russia and learned a lot about agriculture. And learned actually a lot about small agriculture too, because what these big farms were doing were replacing a lot of small plot farmers.
Yep.
And
that's what I find sad. I don't agree with that model. So yeah.
Neither do I. I came to it from the finance world, and I realized it was toxic. But it was super interesting. I got to see all these like remote parts of Russia that most people never go to. And so what I was going to ask you. So have you identified the land that you're interested in making a farm out of?
We are working on a project. Yeah. Whether it comes to fruition yet, I don't know. The owner would like to just kind of keep it private for now until we hash out more details. So
Yeah,
we're not letting anybody know where it is. But
yeah, well, you know what I'm curious about is how far away is it from, big city? Or I know Nizhny Novgorod is a very big city, but
yeah.
how far is the land away from like civilization? Like how far do you have to drive to get to, shopping centers, malls, sort of town, city life?
Country life here is a little different than where we came from in Canada. I mean, in my opinion, the city never kind of ends here. It's just one village after another. It's very different from where we're from. So not very far, I guess. You don't have to go very far before you find another village with a shopping center in it. A large shopping center, I guess Nizhny would have that. I believe there's another city on the way there. So let's say half an hour, maybe half hour, 45 minutes.
So you don't feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere, miles away
not
from
far,
civilization?
Not far enough. We actually would prefer to be farther out. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I saw a piece of land the other day where I was standing. I couldn't see a single house or nothing other than the road I was standing on. Everything was nature, and I said, "That's just perfect. This is where I'd like to build a house." But that's harder to find here. Yeah, the communal farms are all surrounded by villages, right? They're pretty well all built in a village, it seems like. And for us to have an impact, to make a difference, to make people's lives better, hiding in the trees somewhere is not going to help anybody out. So, moving into a village or being able to rebuild that, build jobs, build hope, that'll be a good thing.
So how many acres are you thinking about farming, like, to start? I mean, I realize you are your kids grown up? I mean, or no, they're like, I think I saw
there's
them on
9.
video.
There's 9 of them. Our oldest boy is 23. So once we get established, we're hoping he'll come as well. He's interested, but he didn't feel like traveling all around with us when we have nowhere to end up, right? So yet. So once we get established, and I think he'll come as well. So then they range all the way down from there. How much to start with? It's hard to say. I mean, we'll tackle whatever comes. This place here is going to be about 250, 300 acres to start with. I guess you work in hectares here, so whatever that works out to. But
yeah,
we're hoping to keep growing. As the kids grow up, it'd be nice to set them up on their own places, so they're going to need about that much each as well, right?
Yeah. I come from Amish country in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I know that all those big family Amish men who do farm, like they always explain, look, I got to make enough money so that I can buy farms for all my sons.
Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't come from that background, but that's what we appreciate that model. And I always think, why would you bother working all your life just to blow it on retirement? It seems so silly. I work hard for the next generation. I want to give my children a better opportunity, and not just them. I mean, if somebody else comes around that needs a help, then we'll help them as well, right? But that's our goal. That's what we're hoping to be able to accomplish. We'll see how far we get in that goal, but. And not only that, we teach our children as well. So the oldest one we might help him with a farm. Then we expect him to also be able to help out with his younger siblings, right? So,
yeah. Well, anyway, good luck with it. I think it's such an idyllic lifestyle. And tell me, is it a problem in Canada finding enough, like for big families and the children want to farm? Is it a problem finding affordable land? Are there a lot of like children growing up on farms who realize, well, I'll never be a farmer because it's too expensive, and I don't want to, move far away. I'd rather just stay here and do something else.
That is the biggest problem, affordability, especially Southern Ontario, where we grew up. You get a lot of large Mennonite and Amish families, lots of kids. More and more of those families are now in the trades. They're carpenters, they're plumbers, they're electricians, and less farming because it's just you can't afford to do it. I have 6 brothers, 3 sisters, and there's 1, 2, 3 of us farming. Now, not all of them wanted to farm, but some other ones may have if the opportunity was there. There is 51 grandkids, I think, that my parents have. I would say, well, okay, going to the farming families, there's going to be at least 6 boys that would like to farm that are not including my own. and maybe 2 of those are going to be able to do it just because the costs are too high. Even in my my mother's family, among my cousins, there's only 2 cousins I think that are taking over a family farm. The rest of it's just not affordable. Prices keep going higher and higher, and that's where Russia has such a beautiful opportunity. There's so much land here, so much opportunity, and nobody sees it. That I find it so strange. People don't see that. They just drive by the land. It's just land. I like taking people out and then asking them, "What do you see?" So, "Oh, see some trees," and it's like they don't see, the opportunity or what that land could become. Coming from a place where you want to farm more and you can't, and then seeing all this stuff sitting here and no one's doing anything with it, it's like, what? But yeah.
Hey, Joe. So listen, I could sit here all evening and ask Arend questions about farming. I don't want to derail this conversation into
that's all right. No, I mean, the people are interested. I did want to ask though, you guys, because we're going to end in 20 minutes or less. And the question I'd like you all to try and think deeply about and answer is, because you guys are all older men that have been successful, what would you say to people who have witnessed this tragedy and are trying to emotionally process it? Like, what advice would you have for them, and anything at all that could be said? Eddie, you want to go first?
As a recent immigrant to Russia, having spent over 50 years in America, this unfortunately is much more commonplace in America. And I've caught myself being somewhat desensitized to it all. And, trying to find that human part of me to process everything. It hits different to Russians because this has not occurred. This is not normal life here. I've gotten accustomed to not having to worry about any of these types of events either. Very safe, very comfortable here. So it's a shock to everyone. But this is not commonplace. This is not normal. And I'm hoping going forward, I'm also hopeful that Russia's security forces will do everything they can to make Russia and its citizens safe and feel safe. So am I worried going forward? Not at all. Not at all. And that's my perspective.
Well, you mentioned that you feel like these attacks happen more often in the U.S., and it certainly feels that way. I haven't looked at the statistics. And you guys know, everyone knows I like traditional family values, and that's because I'm a Christian. I would say a serious Christian, but which should just mean that you're just a Christian. And I feel like as America experiments with no traditional family values and gets away from church, and I guess probably even leans more on pharmaceuticals, that, if people don't have a grand purpose in their life, a direction they're aiming in spiritually, you're going to have a tendency to have more events like these, unfortunately. So I'm glad to be living in a country that I feel like is leaning in that direction. So this is what I feel in my heart. I could be wrong, but I'm just giving you my raw thoughts, guys. I don't know if anyone has anything they want to say about that.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. It makes a big difference if people are morally. Where do morals come from? Most Western countries share a sense of morals and direction, but I think they all come from the Bible. Just the regular do's and don'ts of life, I guess, that held us all together, which is eroding fast. There's things now that you see happening in Canada and in the States that I would have never seen as a kid, and hand in hand has gone with breakdown of families, breakdown of church. People just respect the lack of respect for authority. All of it kind of coincides all at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, I would say, Joe, probably your audience is curious about, Russia is often presented as this Christian country in contrast to the de-Christianizing West. And that's true, but it's not. It's interesting. In percentage terms, Russia is not that Christian in the sense of what you're talking about, sort of serious Christian. You know, going to church every Sunday and reading the Bible and praying a lot. And honestly, I would say almost everybody's wearing a cross in Russia. So like 70% of people will say that they're Christian nominally. But I would say out of those, maybe 5% go to church every Sunday and take it seriously and take communion and so on. And that might sound disappointing to some folks, but you got to realize that they started from a very, very low level. They started from almost zero 30 years ago. And what makes Russia a little bit different is that, okay, so you've got this really strong Christians are sort of a base. They're smaller, but they've got a government and an establishment that is encouraging them. And they've got this institution of the official church, which, you know, is doing a lot to increase this and encourage people to take the faith more seriously, which is obviously the complete opposite of what's happening in the West. So here's hoping that Russia will grow in this respect. But I often tell Russians, I say, I'm sorry, but my home county in Lancaster County, is a lot more Christian than Russia is. You know, there's a lot more people there who take the faith seriously, who pray, who read the Bible and so on. And that's an amazing fact. You know, I'm half German also, and I spent many years in Germany and obviously in other countries in Europe, traveling around and so on. And Europe is much, much less Christian than America. And I always tell people, I say, you know, America is one of the most Christian countries in the world, if not the most Christian country. If you just take the percentage of people who take it seriously.
But so would it be fair to say that Russia is increasing their Christian attendance slowly and America is decreasing? I mean, I don't want to bash America, but I'm just trying to understand why it feels to me, let's say, who moved here, like, wow, I'm in a place, I guess, because in the media, Russia is encouraging traditional family values and America is not. So I guess that's why it can be confusing for a person or for me.
Yeah, you know, there was very rapid growth in Christianity in Russia once it was allowed again, but it's really slowed down over the last 5-7 years. It's plateauing a little bit. Wow. Because I think the people who gravitate to it naturally found it and, you know, are really living it properly. And now you get this much slower conversion. And also Russian Orthodoxy is not big on proselytization. They don't go bang on doors and, you know, stand on street corners trying to, you know, convert people. So it's very much like, when you're ready for this, you come into the church. We're not going to, you know, try and convince you to come in, which is, I think is a mistake. They need to do more. But yeah.
Okay, you want to say something, Arend?
I find it's very interesting. I don't like generalizations, so it's so easy to paint everything in one brush. And obviously, different corners of America are different. Different corners of Russia, I'm sure, are different too. And in Canada, the same thing. I do find, again, it's generalization as much as I don't like them. I do find that in Canada, a lot of people claim to be Christian, but they are not holding to the Bible as absolute truth. There's a lot of people that say they're Christian, but now believe in evolution and try to fit the two together, or are okay with gay marriage or things like that, and yet claim to be, you know, true followers of Christ, or pick any other topic, I guess, and they don't seem to have an issue. So they're watering down Scripture, calling themselves Christian. Yeah, that's why we class ourselves as conservative Christian, I guess. We try to step aside from that a little bit. Hopefully that depicts, you know, truly following the Word of God still.
Right.
Yeah. And as far as Russia, I don't have an opinion there. I guess it seems like people are more traditional here, but if it's not based on Christianity, I'm not sure where that tradition comes from then. Maybe you have some insight on that, Joe.
Oh, it's definitely based on Christianity.
It is. Okay.
But you know, for that whole communist period, there was something they called Soviet morality, which was basically taking the preceding Christian morals and putting them in an atheist context. But one thing that was extremely important to them always, and also back over the centuries, was a just society, a fair society. You know, a society where people weren't maltreated and people weren't ground down, and so Russians are always talking about fairness and justness and how important that is in the world. And this comes from people who aren't Christian at all, who, you know, have a very sort of Soviet atheist kind of mindset. So there was a lot of decent morality in the Soviet Union too.
Interesting. Yeah.
And in fact, one of the reasons the Soviet Union
I see it
became immoral, you know.
Right. I mean, see it when I go out there. I see among the people, and I just assume it comes from a Christian background, but perhaps not everybody. I don't ask everybody their faith. I guess that's their business. But a lot of people are very, very kind-hearted. I find, again, that's a generalization again, but I almost find there's more of that heartfelt kindness here than I would have seen back home. People just seem to be generally nice like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, but it is originally Christian morality, because the communists just took that Christian morality and packaged it in their atheist thing, but they were getting it from, you know, the hundreds and hundreds of years before that, which were Christian. So that's what I believe anyway.
Yeah, I've said on the show many times, you know, all of our cultures, they're coming out of Athens and Jerusalem, and, you know, it's all the same, you know, deep roots coming from the same place, you know, coming from the Bible. So Charles, for the audience, I know who you are, but based on what people who don't know you have heard so far, they might be wondering, are you Amish or are you Orthodox? You want to elaborate?
You know what? I grew up Episcopalian, and my faith was about as lukewarm as it gets, and it was never an important thing in my family. We were very much social Christians and not, thoughtful Christians. And it was only when I was 35 years old that I started reading some books and realizing that I thought, no, actually, this is all true and terribly serious. So that was 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very good. Wow.
And I happened to be living in Russia at the time, and just because of that, I became Orthodox, and it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. I'm so glad I did become Orthodox. I wanted to ask you guys, Eddie, Arend, Eddie, do you belong to a Christian denomination?
No, I'm Christian, but I'm not Orthodox. Was raised a Catholic back in the States, but also very lukewarm, when it came to Catholicism.
Mm-hmm. And what denomination do you belong to, Arend?
No, none. We've church shopped quite a bit and never found anything that quite fit with the Bible, in our opinion, and we've just home churched ever since. So,
Interesting.
I enjoy engaging with people in multiple different areas. What was that?
I said I've had lots of talks with you, and you appear to be very serious about the Bible. You take it seriously, and you appear to follow it. So.
100%. Yeah. I believe it's a continued growth. I mean, one problem I have with denominations, and it doesn't have to be that way, but I find it can tend to be that you only look this way then, because whatever you read has to agree with that denomination, and being non-denominational kind of leaves it more broad. Right. If I was in the church I grew up in, I would never be able to look into Orthodoxy because it's right away wrong. And now I'm not bound anywhere. So I can look into that. I can look into Catholicism. I can look into anything I want to. I guess I'm not bound by any denominational glasses. It allows me to read scripture, I think, too, just based on scripture, not on the teachings of somebody who came before me.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. Well, listen. So I publish a website about Orthodoxy in Russia, Arend, and Eddie too. And so if either of you guys have questions about Russian Orthodoxy, I am the man to come to, because I'm not the world's greatest expert myself, but I definitely know where to direct people, and I know an awful lot about it myself, actually. Yeah, as a
Appreciate
journalist.
that.
Thanks, Charles.
Yeah, when things slow down, I'll check it out.
I'll put your links in the description. So text me what you want, and I'll make
I
sure.
I should have put that Russian faith website up there. Yeah.
Yeah, just text me, and I'll just paste it into the description when we're done here. And if I do end up having to remove this video, I'll put up an edited version, and I'll put it in that as well. Before we run out of time, guys, because I want to end in about 5 minutes, Arend, do you want to take a crack at my question? Do you have any advice for people or younger people that are emotionally trying to make sense of this tragedy?
Yeah, 100%. Coming from a faith background again, I think that's our only comfort. Life doesn't make sense. It's so much hurt, so much pain, so much damage out there. I think people have faith in humanity, and then it gets destroyed. I don't have faith in humanity. I have faith in God, and I recognize we're in a completely fallen world where these things happen. And it shouldn't shake. I mean, it's still disturbing. Obviously, it's very disturbing, but it shouldn't shake you to the core if you have faith in God and you realize that there's something better coming, and this is a fruit of sin. So I would encourage all of these people to seek God in prayer, in His Word, and find meaning in Him. I hope people don't resort to revenge and all these evil thoughts, because it just adds more evil to something that's already been so evil. Seek God, seek forgiveness.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Charles, you want to say anything about this question? Like any advice you want to give people that are trying to emotionally sort through this tragedy?
Yeah, I would say, people often underestimate how tiring it is and exhausting it is. And, they kind of like think I'm fine here. I'm dealing with this fine. But on the inside, they're actually hurting. And I've seen a lot of people, for example, get into fights over the last couple of days, squabbles and losing their temper and shouting at each other over nothing that important, just because they're kind of like at the end of their rope. And so I think oftentimes in these situations, people don't realize how hard it is on your internal sense of fairness and decency, and you kind of aren't used to expressing that kind of sorrow, and that you should be aware of it, and take the extra time and get the extra sleep, and realize that you've taken a serious blow. This is something I learned in journalism covering these military disasters, that it's just it really drags you down. And journalists who don't have a faith-based view of life, and who don't take the time to recuperate, oftentimes have nervous breakdowns. Watching all this stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Charles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also echo what you guys say. Being a Christian, for me, is very helpful to know that I'm reading the Bible and I'm trusting that it's God's word. I'm doing what it says, and I'm living the way it says I'm supposed to live, and things are going to happen, good or bad, but in the end, God's going to take care of me. And especially when I see a tragedy, and we all are reminded that this tragedy could happen to us or to someone we love, and there may be nothing we can do about it. And it is a comfort to know that you're trusting in the Father, to take care of you no matter what. Anyway, I didn't mean for this to get super spiritual, but I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your heart. I'm going to put Charles's links in the bottom. Any parting words before we hang up, guys?
Thanks for the invitation, and nice to meet you, gentlemen, and the other gentleman that we met earlier today. Some I've never met before, and it's good to meet everybody. And everybody stay safe, keep the faith, and we'll see you soon. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I wanted to say, Joe, thank you very much for organizing this. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think it's so important for people to be able to connect with what's happening here in Russia and, share their grief, perhaps. I mean, I feel really clobbered by this. It's one thing when you read about it happening in a city far away, but when it's in your own, in the city you're living in and at a place that you've been many times. You know what? My wife was considering going to that concert. Yeah. So when they decided to go somewhere else with a group of girlfriends. So that's rough.
Wow.
That's very rough. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's close to home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much so.
Oh.
Well, thanks for sharing that detail, because it's good to know the truth, and it's good to make it personal, because we want the world to know that Russia is a normal place, a real place with real human beings living here, for sure. So I appreciate that. And Charles, you and I need to do this again, just the two of us, because I haven't had you on the show yet. And
Joe, I would love to. I would love to do that.
Yeah, you're a wealth of wisdom, so I appreciate it.
And Arend, I'd be love to talk to you more about agriculture for like a couple of hours. I
was just going to say, maybe I'll echo that thought. Maybe I should have you on the channel. We have 2 channels going now. I do interviews on one of them, so maybe I'll have to have both of you guys. Well, I've had Joe on there already, but maybe Eddie and Charles on there as well sometimes.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to talk to more people. So, yeah. Well, thanks for doing this, Joe, for having me on there as well, and it was nice meeting you guys as well. So.
You got it, Aaron. Thanks everyone for watching us, and our hearts go out to the victims, and we'll keep saying our prayers, and we'll see you at the next live stream.
Okay,
Good night, y'all.
so long.
Yeah. Good night.